You're watching Bengals Breakdown, and we are rapidly approaching roster cutdown day. Coming up on Tuesday, we will have you guys covered with a full breakdown of the Bengals 53-man roster, the initial version at least, as soon as we have it. So make sure you guys are subscribed at youtube.com/BengalsTV. With roster cutdown day almost here, let's look at some surprise roster cut candidates. Guys that probably won't get cut, but maybe there's a shot that they actually do. Or at least they aren't guaranteed a spot necessarily. First up is Jackson Carman, the Bengals offensive lineman. Now, to be blunt, he's been a bust so far. There's really no way around it from that perspective. He has not been anything close to what the Bengals were hoping he was going to be for this organization. The Bengals would save $1.34 million if they cut him. Now, I do think Carman played a bit better last year down the stretch. The numbers were a little better. And I think he's at his best, by the way, as a run blocker where some of that power can be put on display. But, I mean, this is the same guy that should have overweight in his rookie season. You just can't do. You can't be doing that. Work ethic has been a bit of a problem, whispered so in the past there. Hopefully it gets organized. But think about it this way, if you are the Bengals. You actually have depth along the offensive line. You have Orlando Brown, Volson, Karras, Cap, Williams. Jackson Carman has not fared great at guard. He is, I think, at his best at left tackle. Well, in the event that Orlando Brown goes down, isn't Jonah Williams going to play left tackle for you? Wouldn't that be your plan? So now you've got your third best left tackle, a guy that maybe isn't your best right tackle. I think that might be Deontay Smith right now. And then you're going to pick between Carman and Sharping and Hill, maybe just two of those guys. I doubt Cody Ford makes it. I think La'el Collins begins the year on the PUP list. What this might end up coming down to, by the way, is Carman against a more known-ish commodity in Hakeem Adeniji, who has not played that much in the preseason. And I wonder if that's because the Bengals want to see what they have elsewhere, or if Hakeem really is kind of working as like offensive lineman 10, 11, somewhere in that range. Maybe you can find a trade partner for Jackson, which Bengals don't always do there. If he were to get cut, I would not be surprised if either Hakeem or Jackson Carman got claimed off of waivers, because offensive line play across the NFL sucks. It's not very good. So with that in mind, what would you do with former second-round pick Jackson Carman if you ran the Bengals organization? K, for you, you're going to keep him, give him another shot. C, for you, will cut him after a not great preseason performance so far. We'll see what happens in Game 3, by the way. It's the pinned comment on today's show, so if the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and vote. K for keep, C for cut. Next up on the surprise cut candidate list, wide receiver Stanley Morgan, who, as far as like that, 47th, 46th player, 40th player on your game day roster, that's been Stanley Morgan. He doesn't play that much on offense, but he has been a critically key contributor on special teams over the past year, 2 years-ish, in that range for the Bengals. And in fact, two names on this list, you'll have to wait and see who the other one is, are on this list right here of the top special teams snaps getters. Clay Johnson's gone. Akeem Davis-Gaither, Marcus Bailey back at linebacker. Michael Thomas, the safety, still there. And then Stanley Morgan. How would you replace those 253 snaps if you were to release him? I don't think you're going to make Trent Irwin into a full-time special teams gunner. Could Andrei Iosivas, my boy Yoshi, handle that role? I do think Iosivas and mainly slot receiver Charlie Jones are ahead of Morgan in terms of actual receivers, but special teams matters. Darren Simmons wants some guys he can trust. What you don't want to have is that lost yardage, so to speak, the hidden yardage of, hey, you know what? Our gunner missed a tackle and a 5-yard punt return turned into a 15, 25-yard punt return. That's an explosive play by your special teams allowed if you don't have good players. But would the Bengals carry 7 receivers? I think he makes it, but I wouldn't totally rule it out quite yet. Now, if you want to get this sweet Bengals NFL Jam jersey, we have you guys covered, featuring Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. By the way, Pay Joe Burrow, please. Ideally in the next week maximum. It'd be great if they got that done. Chatsports.com/BengalsJam. Links in the comment section and the description of today's show. Time for a true surprise cut candidate. How about Trayveon Williams, who has been banged up, has missed a bunch of time, unfortunately for Cincinnati. I think the Bengals' plan was to make Williams the team's third down back, to replace the role of the departed Samaje Perine now in Denver. But Williams has missed a lot of time. Joe Mixon, of course, is not going anywhere as RB1, but Williams is also battling a small sample size. He has 47 career carries. For a pretty good efficiency, mind you, the Bengals have liked him in pass protection, but he still had to prove it a bit more this offseason. Chase Brown, I don't think is ready to be a third down back. I think he needs some more time, especially in pass protection, although I still like him long term. But I have been very impressed by Chris Evans, and Evans offers you more pass catching value. My guess right now is the Bengals carry 4 backs. But if they only carry 3, Evans has been the one out there. Williams would certainly qualify from the surprise portion. So name a player who you think could end up being a surprise roster cut from the Bengals organization. Drop that player name for me in the comment section right now. Let's go to defense now. Tufele, the defensive tackle, in a spot that hasn't always featured the level of depth it currently does, which is true for a lot of spots on this Bengals roster. I think Tufele is the favorite for one of those last, if not the last, defensive tackle spots. Tufele has not played a ton in his overall NFL career after being a early-ish pick out of USC. 16 tackles, 2 TFLs last year for Cincinnati. The roster locks at this spot: DJ Reader, BJ Hill, Zachary Carter. Them dudes ain't going anywhere. I think Josh Tupou makes it even over Dominique Davis, who you'll give him the practice squad. He'll make it there. I think they carry 5. Tufele will be the next one up, unless they want to get weird with it and they want to carry Dominique Davis instead, which I don't think is the path the Bengals are going to pursue. Next up is Sidney Jones, probably the least surprising name on this list, but he is a relatively noteworthy name who was on most people's initial 53-man roster projection. But he's missed time. He's been banged up. There's no guaranteed money in his deal. That's the type of easy player to move on from, even though he's brought in to provide some veteran depth in case the young guys didn't emerge. Jones has not played that much. It's really heartbreaking. He's never been the same after that Achilles injury. We're going to be a first-round pick out of Washington, blows it out at his pro day, and fell to round 2, didn't latch on fully in Philadelphia, Jacksonville, Seattle, and now Cincinnati as well. The depth at corner is actually really great. Awuzie, Cam Taylor-Britt, Mike Hilton, DJ Turner, all roster locks. Pretty sure Jalen Davis makes it based on his usage, so there's 5. I think 6 then would be DJ Ivey right now, over Jones, even over Allen George, who actually kind of made the team last year down the stretch. So great depth at corner. I think you should be able to get George the practice squad, by the way. This Bengals defense is actually in pretty damn good shape, which is always a nice thing to hear. So what is your confidence level in the Bengals defense right now? Scale it for me from 1 to 10. Where else but the comment section? Finally, safety Michael Thomas. I mentioned the special teams thing. Well, yeah, here you go again. I think Jones and Thomas, if I had to guess, probably aren't on the roster, at least the initial one there. Thomas has been a key special teams contributor for this team, but I think practice squad might be the route he ends up going, which you can always make him a game day call-up to if needed. Remember, Thomas, by the way, had 288, I believe these are regular season, if I'm remembering my math correctly here, special team snaps, which is 3rd most and the 2nd most returning snaps. That's a lot to potentially replace. But the Bengals, as we've said before, actually have depth at the safety position. Dax Hill, Nick Scott, Jordan Battle, roster locks. Those guys aren't going anywhere. Tyson Anderson, as a former 4th-round pick, had the awesome pick 6. That play, that highlight, I think will go a long way in terms of showing that he's worth keeping on this Bengals roster. Plus, he's been fine beyond that play as well. Carrying 5 safeties is a lot for Cincinnati, so I bet they stash Thomas on the practice squad to begin the season.